Welcome back to another episode of Relatively Damaged Live. I'm Angela, and this is
Kat.
The live shows are currently streamed Mondays to Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and now the website, we think. We don't know if we did that right. Just remember to follow and subscribe and share with your friends. On the Monday segment of the show, Kat and I discuss topics we find interesting for about 30 minutes. So, today's topic: what are some signs of inner struggle? So, first of all, I just want to say one of the reasons that the podcast came to mind, or maybe, one of the reasons, but not the complete reason, was, let's talk about struggle and show people they can make it through. And I'm at a point in my life right now where I'm in the midst of a struggle. And I just want to acknowledge this. It's like, screw that freaking podcast. I cannot listen to it. I don't want to hear it. They don't know, even though I know they know what, we know what we're talking about, that we will make it through. But in this moment, I'm like, no. I had an interview last week. I couldn't even think, so what are some of the signs of inner struggle? I sleep too much. I don't sleep enough. I forget what I'm doing. I can't have conversations. I cry at weird times in weird places. I get angry. I try bargaining. I really don't want to hear someone tell me, oh, it's going to be fine. Sometimes suicidal thoughts cross my mind. I also have learned to reach out in those situations. When I really don't want to, I try to remember it's in those moments, that it's in these struggles, that's when life is happening. Those are when those deep connections matter. That's when I reach out. It's hard. I want to, and then I go into blaming the person who had a direct impact on my struggle, and I get mad and frustrated. And then while I am the victim of someone else's choice, I think that's very different than becoming a victim and moving into that learned helplessness, even though it's really hard to move. And then what happens if there's abuse in the situation? I mean, all of this is so convoluted and confused. And then you guys, I know too, we also have the spiritual circles who say, it's okay not to do anything, but what if, and then what slips into my mind, or some of the minds of people I know who struggle, is, okay, well, that's fine, but what if I never do anything again? What if I just sit here and waste away? And then they remind me, in every other moment that I've been in a similar mindset, did I eventually move out of it? Which gives me peace for a moment until I'm back in the mindset again. So I just wanted to go down my list of what happens before we really got started on just chit-chatting about it.
It's a big list, and it's it's a good list, and it kind of makes me think about the different times that I've had struggles, and what was the root of the struggle. And for me, one of the things that I've noticed is understanding what the root of the struggle is one way to get out of it. And sometimes it's something that happens in an instant. A crisis happens that throws you for a loop, that you're unexpected, and you're like, wait a minute, I have to shift. I'm not ready to deal with that. And that's a struggle. And you're on one track, and then all of a sudden, somebody flips the switch on you, and you have to go this completely different direction. And it could be in a minor thing or it could be in a major thing.
Oh yeah.
And
But
it depends on how, the extent of it depends on the extent of the struggle or the impact of it. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that too, if there's this, I've been reading this book by Gina Lake that's been talking about like that safety and security. And if there's not this underlying belief that the world is safe and secure for us, that it makes those struggles harder. Because then in the struggle, it's only up to us, and we're the only ones who can get ourselves out of it, instead of trusting that there are greater, it's like trusting in a higher power or God, like that it will work itself out, because right now it's not, the world is just not safe. Right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So some of the things that like I've really been having to work on is my compassion toward myself, and recognizing that the struggle is real and hard. And then like just really trying to not be violent with my thoughts, right? Like Marshall B. Rosenberg says, at the root of much, if not all violence, whether verbal, psychological, or physical, whether among family members, tribes, or nations, is a kind of thinking that attributes to the cause of conflict to wrongness in one's adversaries, and a corresponding inability to think of oneself or others in terms of vulnerability. That is what one might be feeling, fearing, yearning for, missing, etc. And in the midst of the struggle, it's really hard to see that in anyone else.
Mm-hmm. Another thing about the struggle is sometimes it's hard to see the way out.
Yeah.
Things are very, very obscured. And I think of all kinds of different struggles that I've been in, or in talking to other people. And something that kind of helps, because like I think one of the things you said was, oh, it's going to be okay. And you're like, I don't want to hear that.
Or the advice yes, without asking. You just need to do this.
Yeah. And I've come to this point where I say to myself, or I've said to others, I'm sorry you're going through that. It sucks.
Yeah. Validating that.
Yeah. And acknowledging that whatever you're going through, it sucks. And it's not invalidating that there are solutions.
Right.
Or there's a way out of it. Because, we all have had struggles, and we've all gotten past those struggles in one form or another. And so, but in that moment, yeah, it sucks. It's just that kind of that acknowledgement of I'm standing with you where you are at in this moment.
Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes that's all we can do. And really just asking the question before giving any advice, like, would you like some tips or some things that worked for me? A lot of times I have tools and tips at the ready, but there is something different about understanding logically what's happening inside of me, and then experiencing what's happening inside of me. And so I can know, and yet experience, like the only thing I can do is just experience it, which is also very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And then I still have those tools and I use them, right? I don't know, using the tools, it still doesn't alleviate that pain. And I think a lot of times we're looking to alleviate the pain. and the suffering. But I think sometimes that just takes time. Like, one of the things I've been I thought this morning when I went to do my meditation, okay, how do I focus on love? Because I know this anger and this frustration and all of this is hurting me. It's not really hurting the other person, but it is physically hurting me when we get into those unhelpful emotions. Maybe they are helpful because they show us something, right? But they're unfun, maybe. That it lowers, it changes me. Like, it makes unhealthy changes in my body, whether I realize it or not, because now I'm tense and angry. My pain, I have a pain disorder that gets worse. I suffer from complex regional pain syndrome, and like, it feels more intense, I think, because I am suffering in that moment. So I thought, okay, how do I shift to love? And this is at a time where it's like, I mean, I'm really hurt and angry. And so then I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to go into my meditation, and maybe I'm just going to imagine that I've got a few embers, because I know love exists, and I know if I look around that there are things I love. So, and then I just thought, okay, what if I just imagine blowing on these embers? Even if they just barely catch the rest of my stuff on fire. Because I realized this morning, the other day, I was fanning the embers of the anger, when I started listening to Lily Allen's song, Fuck You. and I struggled to shift out of it. And then I had been on, I think it was one of Nirmala's retreats or intensive. I think he called it a weekend intensive. And it was focus on this meditation and then just be quiet, make it a silent retreat. And I did that. And slowly over the day, I shifted. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. But I had to keep looking, Hi, Trevor.
Hi, Trevor. Yeah, it's and really, I think in if I'm wrong, please correct me, but I think what you did is you recognize that in yourself, and you recognize that you had to make a shift. And for me, when I need to make a shift on something, I have to acknowledge the suck, embrace the suck. This situation sucks.
Yeah.
And then it's like, do I want to stay there? Or do I want to get better? Do I want to get past the situation?
Mm-hmm. Or who do I want to be?
Yeah. Especially when it comes to those existential kinds of crises. Who do I want to be?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of person do I want to be? Do I want to be that person in self-pity? Oh, I'm a victim. This happened to me. Oh, poor me. And if I can be there in that moment, but the question is, and acknowledge that I'm there in that moment. But it leads to the next question. Do I want to stay there?
Right. I think because what you're talking about is a little bit too, I think, about what I was talking about earlier. Like, yes, you may be the victim of someone else's choices, but that is also, I don't want to say, but yes, you can be the victim of someone else's choices. And that is different, though, than becoming the victim from this moment on, because there's still power in this next moment where we can make a new choice. I think that's what you're talking about.
Exactly. And in those moments, who do I want to be? So do I want to be the victim, or do I want to be no, I don't want to say that. Something just came to mind, and I'm like, no, I don't want to say that, because I don't want to make it an either or situation.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll bring it up. So you could, if you have this duality of thinking, I could be
Mm-hmm.
a victim or I could be a volunteer.
Mm.
I could be a victim or I could be a victor.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking like, no, I want to go to that. I don't want to think in those kinds of terms. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you did this to me, so I'm going to show you.
Right.
You know,
Right.
or or meekly accept. Okay, well, that's what's going on. And I've done both in my life.
Yeah.
I get to this point and it's like, who am I? What is my core value? Who do I want to be? And I
Mm-hmm.
will be that person. And that person can come out regardless of what someone else does to me or whatever situation I find myself in.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to find that version of myself.
Oh, yeah. I think I think that's why I have to, I am working so hard to find my way back to love him. What does that mean? Because does it mean that what happened was okay? No. Does it change that I felt betrayed and lied to? No. Those are very real feelings. That it doesn't change that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it would not be helpful if all of a sudden I decided to behave as if that didn't happen, and it wouldn't be okay because and I think that's where like the confusion can come in with abusive or domestically violent situations and emotions and things like that is that like forgiveness needs to happen. Well, forgiveness happens inside of me for me,
Mm-hmm.
not for the other person. And at the same time, it does not make it doesn't mean that what they did was okay, and they're the ones who have to earn back that trust or whatever it is. And sometimes I think we get this idea, at least I used to have this idea, but that's not the loving thing to do, or that's I need to forgive them, which is like forgive and forget instead of forgive and learn, because they just showed me who they were. And yeah, I see you smiling like you had a
Yeah,
thought there.
that's it exactly. They showed me who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean we're all capable of change. But again, like you said, it has to be earned back.
Yeah.
Um, and in each case, it depends on what it is.
Yeah.
What the problem is. And the same thing is that if we wrong other people, you know, I mean, I've done this thing, where I know I've wronged somebody and then I'm down on myself.
Yeah.
I'm stupid. I'm a horrible person. I deserve to be punished. All of that kind of stuff. And again, it's a crisis of its own making.
Yeah.
Instead of maybe the harder road, but the more sane road is I made a mistake. Who again, going back to who do I want to be? Yes, I'm a
Yeah.
human being. I made a mistake and make true amends for that wrongdoing. Um, because again, it ultimately comes back to us. We have no control over what somebody else does, but we can control our own life. We can say, well, okay, fine, you did this to me. Until you show me differently, I'm not going to put myself in a position to let you do that to me again.
Right.
Um, and I think that's really, and we don't learn that, especially as women. I think we don't learn that. That is the best thing that we can do.
Yeah.
But we
Well,
learn to put ourselves in that second place. Our needs aren't important.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it kind of goes to I think the mentality of, someone hurt me and now I want them to fix what they did. and there's that and it's just like, where does that come from? Why in the world would I want the person who injured me to help make me feel better? Like that's kind of not helpful.
No,
I wouldn't trust them to make me feel better anyway, but like the thinking error that happens.
right. Well, I mean, and I can kind of understand that thinking error because, I'm thinking, well, I did wrong to somebody, and I feel the remorse and I want to make it better. Um, and so you're thinking, well, everybody else thinks the same way I think. They should want to make me feel better because they hurt me. And the truth of the matter is that's, that's not necessarily the case, or they're not there yet. They
or
don't
they
have,
can't.
they can't, they're not there. They don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the tools.
Even so, we are the ones who have to work through our feelings about it, which is not something that they can do,
Exactly.
regardless. Like
Exactly.
they could apologize, they could really mean it, they could, they can do all these other things. And it still doesn't change the fact that it's about what's happening inside of us instead of what's happening inside of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is, there's a quote here from Gina Lake that says, I don't remember which one we were going to do at the end, but let's go back to, I'll use the first one. It says, in fact, everything that people do is an act of love. Whew. Everything that people do is an act of love. Even those who choose to steal from or harm others are doing so out of love for themselves because they believe they need to do that to be safe or happy. Not all acts appear loving, but at their core, those who do them have the intention to do good, at least for themselves, although possibly at the expense of others. And I think that is so true. And because it's really hard to get to see if they're doing it out of needing safety or happiness and it injures me, then it was love for themselves over and not for me. So
I don't know if I agree with that. I'll be honest with you. And I guess it all comes to the definition of love. But if self-interest is love, then I could buy it. But
okay,
I don't necessarily think that. But that's okay. We don't have to go there.
No, but I mean, I had to take this to deep levels to really kind of get to really almost accept it, right? Like, well, what if it's Trevor's giving you a hard time, Kat.
I see.
What if, like, if I think of cancer just wants to survive, but it hurts the human,
right? But it's not
or a
sentient.
virus or COVID.
It's not sentient.
No, it's not. But if we take that same idea and apply it to a human, they just want to feel safe or secure, or whatever it is. They might not be able. Yeah, I'm of the Cancer sign, so that's what Trevor's talking about. Like, if I can find ways, I mean, if God is loving, or if God is love, and God is in all, then even in some of these horrible experiences, there's got to be love just for the experience. Just even a tiny little inkling somewhere. But I really have to go down this road, for me, very abstract road.
Yeah.
in these difficult situations to get myself to a place where I can be like, okay, there's some relief. There is something there.
Mm-hmm. And I can buy everything you said about that, except the name love, I think. Well, you and I have talked about this a lot, and for me, loving is something that is giving, not taking.
Right, but if the light of Christ exists in all things, and God is love and God is also the light of Christ, then then in some ways like that, there's this love for life. Does I don't know. Like, yeah, we're getting into my abstract thinking here.
Yeah. And we're going to go in a whole different direction if we go down that road.
I know. Well, but that is how hard it is in the middle of a struggle to even look for and think of the possibility that there is love, especially when someone has injured us.
Mm-hmm.
And because if we are love, if I am love and I do things that hurt other people, and I don't do it on purpose, but I do something and it hurts someone else because I didn't realize what I was doing was going to injure them, does that mean I'm any less loving? It's just I didn't think about it, or I only saw this option.
Yeah. But I also think that a lot of times we act rashly without thinking about possible consequences.
That is also true, in which case.
And so it's a reaction more than it is a loving action.
Right, but which probably came out of needing security or safety,
Right.
or some need. They needed something.
Well, and that goes kind
us.
of, yeah. I mean, if you look at like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you go to those basic kinds of needs, of course we're going to default to that.
Mm-hmm.
If I couldn't say if I was starving and I saw a loaf of bread on a table, I wouldn't take it.
Right.
Because that need of mine was so great, rather than those other needs, that that the higher needs of concern and connection and things like that. In that moment, I'm starving.
Right.
I need bread.
Yeah.
And so, if that's where people are at in that hierarchy, they're going to make the decision that's best for them.
Right.
And maybe in that case, maybe I can buy the love because they can't think of a love beyond themselves. They don't think of the love of Christ, the connection inside that we all have to each other. They're only
Mm-hmm.
thinking of their own self and their own ego-centric situation. What I need in this moment is.
Right. And it's so true. I mean, don't we all do that, right? And I think another way to get there, especially when I'm struggling and I can't see straight, is Fred Blum likes to talk about it as, one being looking out of 7 billion different eyes. And, when I can think of and look at these other people, again, not saying that what they did was good or helpful or nice and it wasn't hurtful, but I can look at them and kind of wonder, okay, what part of me is so hurt that I would do that to another person? Or what part of me could not see that I would do that to another person? It doesn't change the fact that I'm struggling and I have to consistently work through those emotions again and again and again and again. And I think sometimes we forget that, like, we work through the emotions of the struggle and then we have to do it again. And I mean, I think we've talked about a few different ways,
Mm-hmm.
meditation, thinking, how do I get through this thinking error? Right now, let me imagine I'm looking through 7 billion different eyes, and maybe that will help me, see love. right?
Let me get to the root of the problem. Let me really get an understanding of what really is bothering me.
Well, right, because I think also there's recognizing that there's a trigger to that feeling. And if there's a trigger to that feeling, then something's happening inside of me. And what is it? What is at the core of what's happening inside of me? Why does this make me so mad? Because that has everything to do with me. And still, while that person did something, it doesn't have anything to do with them. I'm still the one who has to work it out, which can be hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And lonely.
Yes, it can be.
Because even if I surround myself with people who are supportive, I still have to work through it. But I know we've hit our 30 minutes, and I know you have a quote.
I do, and I'm guessing this is from Gina Lake also.
Yes.
To discover the beliefs behind a negative feeling, we have to be willing to be with that feeling without repressing it or expressing it.
Yeah.
So that to me is kind of like the key to overcoming that inner struggle, the first step that we need to take.
Yeah. And that's really hard. It is really hard to sit with it and to not respond or react out of that feeling. And it's a great sign that says I'm struggling.
Yeah.
If I'm having those feelings and I am reacting, I might take that as a sign that I need to sit with something and just be quiet. In fact, I did that Saturday. I didn't talk for 8.5 hours. Well, I know we're up our time. So I'm Angela, and
I'm Kat.
And we'll see you next week. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.